Melissa Parker adjusted her scarlet gown in the mirror of the Plaza Hotel's elevator. Tonight was her moment finally attending the prestigious winter charity gala on the arm of New York real estate mogul James Hartwell. After 8 months of secret dinners, hidden weekend getaways, and passionate encounters in luxury hotel suites, James had finally invited her to a public event. "You deserve to be seen," he told her last week over dinner at Le Bernardin. "I'm tired of hiding how I feel about you." Melissa had nearly dropped her champagne flute. For months, James had insisted on discretion. Business colleagues, board members, and of course, his wife Victoria couldn't know about their relationship. But something had changed. James was taking risks now, and Melissa couldn't help but feel this was the beginning of their real life together. The elevator doors opened to reveal the glittering, grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over New York's elite politicians. Celebrities and business titans mingled while a string quartet played softly in the corner. James stood near the bar, impossibly handsome in his tailored tuxedo. "You look breathtaking," he whispered, kissing her cheek and placing his hand on the small of her back. Melissa felt the stares immediately. Whispers followed them as James guided her through the crowd. She recognized several faces from the society pages, people who undoubtedly knew James was married. "James," a silver-haired woman approached, eyes narrowing as she assessed Melissa. "Wonderful to see you." Victoria mentioned she wasn't feeling well tonight. "Margaret," James nodded stiffly. "Yes, unfortunately she couldn't make it. This is Melissa Parker, my marketing consultant." Melissa's smile faltered. "Marketing consultant? After all his promises?" "How nice," Margaret replied, her tone suggesting it was anything but. "I must say, James, you've never mentioned bringing consultants to these events before." James cleared his throat. "Melissa has been invaluable to our East Side development." As Margaret walked away, Melissa felt a cold reality settling in. Despite his promises, James was still hiding their relationship, just more publicly now. "Marketing consultant?" she hissed. "Melissa, please," James whispered urgently. "These people are important business connections. I'm just easing them into the idea of us." Before she could respond, a waiter approached with champagne. James took 2 glasses, handing one to Melissa with a pleading look. "Let's just enjoy tonight," he said. "This is a big step for us." Melissa took a long sip, feeling the bubbles burn down her throat. She'd waited so long for this night to be acknowledged, to step out of the shadows. James introduced her to more people, always with that careful distance in his voice. Colleague, consultant, associate. Never girlfriend. Never the woman he'd promised to leave his wife for. As midnight approached, Melissa excused herself to the ladies' room, needing a moment alone. In the mirror, she hardly recognized herself. The woman who had once prided herself on independence, now clinging to crumbs of affection from a married man. What she didn't know was that across town, Victoria Hartwell was slipping into a black Chanel dress, preparing to make an entrance that would change everything. Victoria Hartwell had known about her husband's affair for exactly 42 days. It wasn't the lipstick on his collar or late nights at the office that gave him away. It was the change in his password habits. For 15 years of marriage, James had used the same variations on their anniversary and her birthday. Then suddenly, his phone was locked with a pattern she couldn't guess. His credit card statements arrived in password-protected emails. He'd created a digital fortress overnight. The elegant brownstone on the Upper East Side felt enormous as Victoria paced the master bedroom. The household staff had the night off. She'd made sure of that. No witnesses to her breakdown or what would come after Mrs. Hartwell? A man's voice called from downstairs. "I have the information you requested." Michael Dawson former FBI agent turned private investigator, stood in her foyer looking uncomfortable in his suit. Victoria had hired him 3 weeks ago, after finding a receipt for a woman's bracelet from Tiffany's, a bracelet she'd never received. "Everything's in here," he said, handing her a sealed manila envelope. Photos, hotel receipts, text message, transcripts. The woman's name is Melissa Parker, 32, works in marketing at Carson & Burke. They've been seeing each other for approximately 8 months. Victoria's hands didn't shake as she opened the envelope. The photos were Clear James and a beautiful woman with chestnut hair dining at exclusive restaurants, entering hotel lobbies, kissing in a private cabana in Miami. The final photo showed James handing her an invitation to tonight's winter charity gala. "The annual gala," Victoria whispered. "He's taking her to our event, the gala that she'd helped organize for 10 years. The event where they'd first met, where he'd proposed on their first anniversary. There's more," Michael said quietly. "The text messages indicate he's been promising to leave you. He told her it would happen after the Henderson merger closes next month." Victoria nodded, paying Michael his final installment before showing him out. Alone again, she opened her jewelry box, removing the diamond earrings James had given her. For their 10th anniversary, her marriage had been a calculated partnership from the beginning. She brought social connections and old money. He brought ambition and new vision. Together, they built an empire. Victoria had accepted his occasional indiscretions, discreet affairs that never threatened their arrangement. This was different. This woman was a threat. Victoria's phone buzzed with texts from concerned friends at the gala. "James is here with some woman. Are you okay? Should we say something?" She texted back a single reply to her closest friend. "Don't worry. I'll handle this myself." Upstairs, she applied her makeup with precision, selecting a black Chanel dress that had always been James's favorite. As her driver brought the car around, Victoria slipped the envelope of evidence into her clutch. The night was just beginning, and Victoria Hartwell had never been one to surrender without a fight. The winter charity gala was in full swing when Victoria's town car pulled up to the Plaza Hotel. She'd timed her arrival perfectly 11:15 p.m. when the alcohol had loosened tongues, but before anyone important had left Dot as the elevator ascended, Victoria reviewed her strategy. Public humiliation would damage them both. James controlled too many of their assets. No, this required surgical precision, a killing blow that left her standing. The ballroom fell silent as she entered. Victoria Hartwell, charity board member and society fixture, gliding through the crowd in Chanel and diamonds when everyone knew her husband was across the room with his mistress. Victoria. Eleanor Thompson, the gala chairwoman, rushed over. "We didn't expect you tonight. James said you were ill." "I made a miraculous recovery," Victoria smiled, her voice carrying just far enough. "I couldn't miss our most important event of the year." Across the room, she spotted them. James froze mid-conversation, his face draining of color. The woman in red, Melissa, looked confused, then stricken as realization dawned. Victoria moved through the crowd, accepting condolences, disguised as greetings with gracious nods. Everyone watched the slow-motion collision course. "James," she said, reaching her husband and kissing his cheek as though nothing were amiss. "I'm feeling much better. I hope you've been enjoying the evening." James swallowed hard. "Victoria, I didn't expect you." "Clearly," she replied, turning to Melissa with a practiced smile. "And you must be the marketing consultant I've heard so much about. Melissa, isn't it?" Melissa's face flushed crimson. "Yes, James speaks very highly of your work," Victoria continued, her voice honey-sweet with venom underneath. "Though he failed to mention how young you are. How refreshing to see new talent in the field." The guests nearby had stopped pretending not to listen. This was the spectacle they'd come for, drama among the elite. Victoria, perhaps we should discuss this privately, James muttered, looking around nervously. Discuss what, darling? I'm simply meeting your colleague, Victoria replied, then turned to Melissa. Though I wonder if you've seen the Henderson proposal. James has been working so hard on that merger. Confusion crossed Melissa's face. The Henderson merger? I thought that was already almost complete, James interrupted sharply. Victoria, shall we get you a drink? Victoria's smile never wavered. The merger that's closing next month, correct? The one that's so important to our future? Recognition flickered in Melissa's eyes, the timeline James had given for leaving his wife. Actually, Victoria continued, I've just come from a meeting with the Henderson board. They've decided to pull out of the deal entirely. Apparently, some concerning information came to light about our company's stability. James paled. What are you talking about? That's impossible. Nothing's impossible when you're the majority shareholder's goddaughter, Victoria replied softly. Did you forget that connection, James? Or did you just assume I wouldn't use it? The implications settled over them like frost. Without the Henderson merger, James's ambitious expansion plans would collapse. His position with investors would be compromised, and Victoria had orchestrated it all. You wouldn't, he whispered. I already have, Victoria answered, then turned to Melissa with genuine pity. I suggest you verify his promises more carefully in the future. The timeline he's given you is no longer viable if it ever was. The silent standoff lasted only seconds before James pulled Victoria aside, his fingers digging into her arm, as he steered her toward an empty corner of the ballroom. You've destroyed everything, he hissed, eyes wild with panic. Do you have any idea what you've done? Victoria removed his hand from her arm with deliberate calm. I've protected what's mine. The company, our reputation, our life. Our life? James laughed bitterly. We haven't had a life together in years, Victoria. We have an arrangement. A business partnership with shared living quarters. And yet, she replied coolly, you never had the courage to end it. Instead, you lied to her about leaving me after the merger. You lied to me about your intentions. Always the coward's path, James. Across the room, Melissa stood frozen, champagne glass clutched in white knuckles, as curious onlookers pretended not to stare. The merger can still happen, James said desperately. Call Richard Henderson. Tell him it was a misunderstanding. Victoria opened her clutch, removing a single photograph James and Melissa kissing on a balcony, and placed it in his hand. There are dozens more, she said quietly. Hotel receipts, text messages, all documenting how the CEO of Hartwell Enterprises has been distracted from company business for months. The board would find it fascinating reading. James's face hardened. Blackmail, Victoria? I didn't think you'd stoop so low. Not blackmail, she corrected. Negotiation. Tomorrow morning, you'll transfer $20 million to my personal account. You'll sign the Riverside property over to me, and you'll announce you're taking a sabbatical to focus on family matters. And if I refuse? Victoria smiled slightly. Then by tomorrow afternoon, every board member, investor, and competitor will receive evidence of how you've been mismanaging company time and resources. Your affair is the least of it. I've had auditors reviewing your recent decisions. The Patterson deal? The Singapore acquisition? All questionable at best, fraudulent at worst. The color drained from James's face. You've been planning this. Since the day I found out, Victoria confirmed. Did you really think I'd just step aside? That I'd surrender everything we've built because you fell for a pretty face? Melissa appeared beside them, her composure regained, but eyes bright with unshed tears. Is it true? She demanded of James. About the merger? About leaving her? James looked trapped between them, the architect of his own destruction. Melissa, he began, reaching for her hand. She pulled away. "Tell me the truth for once. Were you ever going to leave her?" The silence that followed was answer enough. "You told me you weren't happy," Melissa said, voice breaking. "That your marriage was just for appearances. That you wanted a real life. With me." "I meant it," James insisted. "Things are complicated." "Actually," Victoria interrupted, "they're quite simple now. James will be taking time off to reconsider his priorities. And you, Melissa, should know that you're not the first. There was Caroline from accounting last year. Alexandra from legal before that." Melissa's face crumpled as the full weight of James's deception hit her. Without another word, she turned and walked away, dignity somehow intact despite the whispers following her exit. James watched her go, then turned to Victoria with cold fury. "You've won. Are you satisfied?" Victoria's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing not triumph, but exhaustion. "There are no winners here, James, only survivors." 1 week after the gala, Victoria sat in her attorney's office, reviewing the final separation agreement. The Riverside property was now in her name. $20 million had been transferred to her account. James had announced his temporary leave of absence, citing family reasons. "Everything is in order," her lawyer confirmed. "You've secured an excellent settlement without the mésalliances of a public divorce." Victoria nodded, signing the last page. "With a steady hand. And the non-disclosure agreement? Binding for both parties. Neither of you can speak publicly about the circumstances of your separation." Outside, autumn rain fell on Madison Avenue. Victoria watched drops streak down the window, remembering another rainy day 15 years ago when she'd met James at a charity auction. She'd been captivated by his ambition, his certainty that he would conquer Manhattan real estate. He'd been enchanted by her connections, her old money elegance. They'd made sense on paper. "Will you file for divorce eventually?" her lawyer asked, interrupting her thoughts. "Not immediately," Victoria replied. "Let the gossip die down first." The truth was more complicated. Divorce meant admitting failure. It meant dismantling the careful facade they'd built together. Victoria wasn't ready to surrender that yet. Across town in a small cafe, Melissa sat across from Michael Dawson, the same private investigator Victoria had hired. "Why did you want to meet?" she asked, stirring her untouched coffee. Michael placed a folder on the table. "I thought you deserved to know the whole truth. Victoria Hartwell hired me to investigate you and her husband." Melissa's hand trembled. Slightly. "She knew about us before the gala?" "For weeks," he confirmed. "What you don't know is that James has a pattern. I've tracked 5 affairs in 3 years. Always the same promises, always the same ending." Melissa opened the folder, seeing faces of women who had come before her, each beautiful, accomplished, believing they were special enough to make James leave his wife. "She wanted me to give you this," Michael added, sliding an envelope across the table. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a note in elegant handwriting, "For your silence and your healing." We were both deceived. Melissa's eyes filled with tears, not for James, but for the woman she'd viewed as her enemy. Victoria had suffered this humiliation multiple times, yet had found compassion for her husband's latest victim. Meanwhile, James Hartwell sat alone in his penthouse, a tumbler of scotch in hand as he watched the rain. His phone had been silent for days. No calls from Melissa. No messages from Victoria. Even his closest business associates were keeping their distance. The Henderson merger was salvaged. Victoria had made that call after all, but his reputation had suffered. Everyone knew he'd been forced to step back. Everyone suspected why. James poured another drink, wondering when exactly he'd lost control. Was it the first time he'd lied to Victoria? The first time he'd made empty promises to a mistress? Or was it the moment at the gala when he'd seen the two women he'd underestimated finally see him for what he truly was. In 3 different locations, across Manhattan, 3 people contemplated the ruins of what they'd built. Victoria with her hard-won settlement, but hollow victory. Melissa with her broken heart, but newfound wisdom. James with his empire intact, but his power diminished. And in the glittering world of New York society, the story of the winter charity gale, or where the mistress smiled until the wife walked in, became legend, whispered over champagne at every event that followed.